All right, we're good. Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody to the Columbus Free Press Salon, January 13th, 2024. This is our first one in 2024. Welcome to 2024, everybody. Um, it is also the Martin Luther King weekend, so we thought we should probably focus on militarism, poverty, and racism. The first subject usually isn't talked about too much in internal politics is militarism because we like our good guns, we like our wars, we like that. So it's hard to get that discussion going on. But we have two folks that are coming to speak with us about the current war that's going on in Gaza and then other issues that they'd like to talk about. Rose Eldada and um, Shayna Solomon. Shane and I met at the protest we did at the Bicentennial Park, and I think it was one of the first times that publicly both the Jewish Voices for Peace and the Students for Justice for Palestine had sort of a collaboration, a collaborative meet. They had other actions where other folks had uh, joined each other, but this was actually jointly planned. And so that was a great action. And I think we're going to have much legs of those kind of actions coming in the future. So militarism, poverty, and racism were the triplets of oppression that Martin Luther King spoke of many years ago, and we still are in the midst of it. So I came on a little late, so I want to make sure. Shayna, do you have any time restraints, or can we have Rose go first, or if Rose wants to go second, however we want to do that? Why don't we, Rose, would you mind go ahead? Today is actually a great, large, big demonstration that went on in DC. And we're hopefully we'll have a little bit of reports about that in subsequent and maybe even tonight if anybody's heard anything about what happened in DC. This is a protest in solidarity with folks that are in resistance to um, imperialism. We can call it straight out imperialism, U.S. imperialism, with Israeli military in its sort of guest work, making them do their proxy work. So here we are. Rose Eldada is a local uh, private entrepreneur, and is very involved with this policy. I heard her first speak at that action on the third on at Bicentennial Park. So I really enjoyed her speech then, and I'd like her to be able to go ahead and give us what she's got. Thank you very much again.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Don't mind me. I've had a very long day at work. My name is Rizana Dadah. I go by Rose. I am a luxury real estate agent here in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm also a first generation immigrant from Gaza. It's it's really hard to talk about things like this, especially more recently after everything. And it's the morning has kind of set in for me a lot. For those of you who didn't hear my speech, I lost six family members due to a targeted attack by the IDF. So the story, their story needs to be shared, and I really want to share it with you guys. The first missile, so since October 7th, my family has had a solemn ritual. Every day they would fast, and from the time between Asr and Maghrib prayer, they would all sit and read the Quran together. And they would, once they were done during the Maghrib prayer, they would each eat a date and they would get up and pray. So on October 7th, they had just finished completing the Quran, and my Khalu Rafat, who is the number one doctor in Gaza, he actually received that reward multiple times. He's well recognized across the entire world, and he has changed so many lives. Allah yarhamu. Um, he told everyone, okay, let's get up and pray. And as they started their prayer, the first missile hit. The first missile trapped and killed my Khaltumana, which is my aunt. She was a computer engineer and she was so great. She was the light of everybody's life. She was so sweet and nice and always smiling. Um, it also trapped my three cousins, Dr. Noor Lubed, who was Dr. Rafat's daughter, and Dr. Rafat's other two daughters, Saad Lubed and Jannah Lubed. Noor, I call her Dr. Noor because she was in her final year of medical school. And she had actually, a week before she passed, she had talked to my mom and she said, I don't think I'm going to finish medical school. And my mom said, no, Noor, you're going to be the best doctor, just like your dad. And unfortunately, she died with her helping her family, just like her dad did. Um, she was 20 years old. Jenna Lopez, she was only 3 and she acted like a grown woman. She took care of her baby sister Saad. Like she was her mom, basically. It was adorable. And Saad was only 18 months. My other aunt, Esma, and the my two uncles, Khal Rafat and Khal Firas, and the rest of the children were able to make it out safely. Once they were out, Khalil Rafat, he went back into the home to try to get his daughters out of the rubble. And when he was spotted, he was also targeted, and the IDF sent a missile down and killed him and his 3 daughters. And my Khalil Rafat, my Khalil Firas was outside saving another family who was stuck in the rubble. And when he was spotted, he and that family of 5 were also targeted and martyred. That's not the only thing that's happened to my family. The Lupet family is a very large, prominent family. It's among one of the 5 largest families in Gaza. And part of my family resides in Beit Lahia, where there is absolutely no Hamas at all. And I also want to mention my Khalo Firas, who was martyred saving that family of 5. He was an engineer in computer science and in technology, as well as a sheikh in the masjid. So absolutely no ties to Hamas at all whatsoever. Our family is known for being philanthropers, for being well-educated scholars, and for constantly helping their community. My family who lives in Beit Lahia, I had a chance to speak to one of my relatives, Muhammad, and he told me a very, very gruesome story. So it's very hard to talk about, so I'm going to give you the gist of it. Um, One day at 10 p.m., there's absolutely no Hamas, but they're being monitored like they're all terrorists, going so far as the IDF have drones that peer into people's windows. They have checkpoints where they have to present their IDs to get into their own homes at times. And at one day at 10 p.m., they received a knock on their door from the IDF lead commanding officer. He immediately ordered all evacuation of all women, children, and men over the age of 50. They were then sent to a makeshift hospital because there are no functioning hospitals. Later, that not even a day later, that hospital was set on fire by the IDF and forced thousands of women, children, and elderly to be displaced and forced to live in tents with no food and water. But when they evacuated the women, the remaining men, they asked them all for their IDs. And Muhammad's brother, he was only 15, he um, told them that he didn't have an ID. And they looked at him and he told Muhammad, he said, they looked at me for 10, 15 minutes and they came back after they left and they knew everything about me. They knew his birthday, his where he worked, where he went to school, his friends, all of that. They listed things out to him. Once they collected IDs, they made everybody strip naked, where they were subject to brutal torture and beatings. Then they were taken outside, still naked, and tied up in dehumanizing ways. And then they took a picture of those men who are my family. And they used that as false propaganda, claiming that they had found all of those men inside tunnels with absolutely no women, children, or elderly with them, and that they were all Hamas. Those men were later released, most of them, but as they were being released, Muhammad's brother did get shot and killed, his 15-year-old brother. So it's a lot to talk about. If I could take a little break, I would like to pass it on, and I'll come back because I need a little
Yeah,
break after.
Rose, thank you so much for even sharing a little bit of that story. It's amazing that you could even at this point even articulate a little bit about it. I do want to say one of our good friends, Connie Hammond, was the reason why you both were invited, and I really would like to, Stephen, if we don't have Connie already unmuted, can we get her unmuted as well to share in some of this conversation? Connie has been very involved with Jewish Voices for Peace, and I'd like you to maybe share a little bit of what work you've been doing over the God knows how many years that you've been doing this. And then Shayna, we'll get back to you real soon, okay? But Rose, again, thank you for sharing that. I I, I can't even imagine the grief and the sorrow that's going on. So
Yeah, I have a couple more things I'd like to add.
yeah,
I
of
just want to
course. You're
take
not
another
done. You're not done. We just, you're not done. So we're going to talk for a little bit more about this. Okay. Uh, Go ahead, Connie. If you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing and how you have been maneuvering between all this uh, before, after, and all the other. October 7th is just one date. There's been many others, but this is the current 100 days. We're at 100 days right now of this current conflict, this current actually brutal onslaught on Gaza. Thank you, Connie, for bringing the folks in. And if you have like 4, 5, 6 minutes to talk, or even shorter, whatever you want to do, and then we'll get over to Shayna, and then we'll be back to Rose.
That would be great, Mark. I'll just keep it real brief, but there have been we had have a progressive peace coalition, Middle East peace group has been working for decades on Palestinian human rights and lobbying and demonstrating. We had women in black demonstrations every Friday night at OSU, and then once we started the Jewish Voice for Peace chapter in Columbus, that kind of involved a lot of work. And so, but that group has been working tirelessly for, I think, about the last 10 years. So, right now, basically, what I'm doing is trying to support SJP, and they are doing a marvelous job. And so, I try to attend all of their events and demonstrations and things. And also, I'm heading up the legislative organizing subcommittee for JVP, and we have a great group going. And we've been meeting with Joyce Beatty's office. We've pretty much concentrating right now on Senator Sherrod Brown, and we really think he might be movable. So keep up all your calls to Congress. And that's all I need to say. We want a ceasefire now. And the only way to get a ceasefire now is to quit military assistance to Israel. And Bernie Sanders introduced a bill recently it's an amendment to his previous bill that that we're supporting, because it calls on the State Department to issue a report about human rights abuses within 30 days. And if the State Department does not do that, then all military assistance to Israel has to stop.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very important bill. So pushing to get that. It may be it's scheduled for a vote next Tuesday, late in the day. So we're hoping to get Senator Brown to vote for that.
Yeah, Connie, if you could in the chat and send it to Suzanne later, how to contact and all that stuff, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure, I will.
That kind of approach, legislative approach, worked very well when Indonesia was attacking East Timor and historically other activities that were going on inside Indonesia. So this is a proven track that does and what will work if we are constantly pressuring. And I know legislators are thick in the head most of the time right now. And we are such a minority. We don't even have a voice basically in Congress at this point. So we got to just keep pushing. Yeah, I would thank you. Resolution 502BC. Thank you. And please share more information, Connie, with Suzanne so she can do in the follow-up, the wrap-up. Shayna, are you ready to go forward? And then we'll get back to Rose for sure. But Shayna, thank you again. Shayna is sort of new to Columbus, Ohio, and welcome and thank you. She does more national work and sort of timid to say that she's doing anything in Central Ohio, but she's going to be a blessing, and we'll get her more involved with Columbus as she lives here. So thanks, Shayna.
Thank you. And yeah, definitely just so many condolences and best wishes of healing to your family, Rose. And also thank you for sharing. I definitely have less to share, but I have also been like Mark said, I'm involved nationally in immigration justice organizing mostly, but locally in JVP Central Ohio. And what feels really important listening to Rose's stories is that it's just the incredible amount of loss and our responsibility as people who are not Palestinian and are not as directly connected to stand up and do something about it. In the Jewish community, so I am part of the Jewish community. In the Jewish community, it has been particularly hard to get people to really look at the suffering that is happening. And then even if they look at it, to be able to look at it and see how militarization hasn't helped anything. But for me in this moment, looking at the years and years and years of massive militarization and increasing militarization against Gaza, it becomes more and more clear that that type of militarization, and especially with October 7th, that it doesn't actually create safety. It doesn't create safety for Palestinians. It doesn't create safety for Israelis either. That violence and militarization doesn't create safety for anybody. And that has also become really clear with what Connie was bringing in a little bit around the negotiations that are happening in Congress. I think we know that next week, actually, there's going to be a push for Democrats to sort of trade basic immigration rights for money for the Israeli military, as well as the Ukrainian military. And that the militarization of that has led to just the ridiculous and tremendous amount of loss in Gaza is also tied now to the militarization of the US-Mexico border and the great amount of loss that's happening there as well, and none of it is acceptable. I've been proud to be able to join JVP in this moment. It has been absolutely incredible to watch the extent of SJP organizing, and Palestinian Arab Muslim organizers shouldn't have to do that work alone. It has been really wonderful to be part of an influx of new members to JVP Central Ohio, many new Jewish members among them. and just to be part of that project to try and bring people together and figure out, like Connie was mentioning about her subcommittee, we now have a bunch of subcommittees with people doing different things in different topic areas so that we can actually really all pull together and move forward and do the work in a really substantial and meaningful way to support the organizing for a ceasefire in this moment.
Thank you, Shayna, and welcome to Columbus. I just noticed Pharrell isn't on here too, so if he has anything Brody would like to speak a little bit as well. I don't want to mute him as well. So Stephen, if you can get Pharrell on as well at some point. Okay, thank you. Anytime you want to bring anything in that of your work as well, please step in. We do have some actions coming up. Martin Luther King Day is coming up on Monday, 9:30. Michael of JVP has called for an action to be a somber and silent action at the breakfast at the convention center at 9:30 in the morning. And so if anybody can join on Monday then, and then they're also wanting to attend the MLK March and events at the Lincoln Theater, and that starts at 4. So if you're interested in that, jump on the chat and we can get you connected with the folks that are doing those things. And Yoshi is giving me food. Thank you. It is a salon, so please partake. Again,
I'm ready when you
okay,
guys
Rose.
are.
Thank you, Rose. And yeah, so whenever you're ready, we do want to make sure that folks know that 9:30 is a local protest at the convention center and 4 o'clock at the Lincoln Theater. So Rose, are you ready? That's on Monday morning. And so Rose, please join back in if you'd like, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I needed to take a quick little break. I do want to talk a little bit more about my personal experience with the IDF and my mother's time in Gaza. I went to Israel when I was about 14. So this is 14, 15 years ago. And I went there with my family. And originally, as an American citizen, we were told we had the ability to travel to and from Israel and within the cities in peace. Now, keep that in mind as I tell you the rest of the story. When we got there, we were immediately separated on the bus. My 3 sisters and I sat on one chair, and my mother and father sat on another chair. And I remember 3 soldiers coming onto the bus and dragging my sisters and I off the bus and not letting our parents leave the bus. And they were screaming and screaming at them to sit down and laughing as we were crying because our parents were in a foreign country that we've never been before. And our parents are on a bus. So finally, they let my dad only off because he was screaming and like waving his passport around. And he was able to come off, but my mom wasn't, and she was stuck at the bus station for 2 hours waiting for us. So imagine if they didn't let my dad off the bus and it was just me and my 2 younger sisters alone with the IDF officers for 2 hours. Then when we got there to the next checkpoint, they then questioned us separately for hours, and they left my mom in questioning for over 7 hours. They then, when we were finally able to travel, we were constantly harassed by IDF soldiers. We were spit at by even the citizens, and it's scary being so young, and we're seeing like 18, 19-year-olds like carrying huge guns. So it was obviously terrifying. We tried to go to Gaza at that point, and I remember the IDF officer looking at me and laughing at me and telling me in Arabic, "Why would you want to go to Gaza? It's a prison." And that was like I said, 14, 15 years ago. My mother had the chance to go to Gaza back in 2020 because my teta, my grandma, got really sick, and Israel didn't give us any access to going over there. They only gave my mother permission to go, being that it was direct family. So we didn't get a chance to say goodbye to her, um, which was really hard for me because she's my favorite person in the world. And so the first thing my mom noticed when she got there was, besides the constant bombings that were happening, and this is 2 years ago, was the fact that they had no clean water at all. They had to buy jugs of water and place it on top of their homes. And my family is fortunate enough to be able to afford to do that. But a lot of people aren't able to do that. They also, if you don't know, Israel and the IDF controls all fuel, import, export, food intake, water supply, electricity, everything, in Gaza and in the West Bank. And they've built walls around it. And Gaza is water and then walls. So it is a prison, and um, all their food, everything's being controlled. They can't collect their own rainwater because it's illegal. They will be tortured, beat, or imprisoned or killed if caught doing so. They also didn't they didn't have I'm sorry. They don't have the ability to even, I'm sorry, it's just so crazy to me that like this happened 2 years ago, so it's only gotten worse. And 14 years ago, the IDF soldier told me that it was a prison. So that's what people need to understand right now, is that it's been an ongoing thing. They've been controlling the food supply, the water, the intake, everything has been controlled. It's gotten so bad to the point where now it's unlivable, and there are like millions of people displaced, millions. Um, I also wanted to talk about next steps for us. We really need to focus on getting our family out, since that targeted attack killed my two uncles. They were the main suppliers for our family, for financially, for everybody. And now it's on our family to be there for them, and we have to help them evacuate. And if you guys don't know, it cost around $7,000, almost 8,000 now. At the beginning, in October 7th, it was around $5,000 a person. Now it's almost eight. Um, to get their names put on a list to be able to flee and leave Gaza to seek safety in Egypt. So we started a fundraiser, a GoFundMe that's available in the link in my Instagram, or if Connie wants to share it, I can send it over, um, where we're trying to raise money. And like I said, our family is very, very large. We have 41 people, so it's going to cost over $300,000 for us to just get our family out. And we have 10 orphan kids in the family now because they don't have a mom or dad, that we desperately need to get them over here. We need to focus on rebuilding. Yes, we need a permanent ceasefire, but we also need to think ahead. We need to think in the future. We can't be focused on what's going on right now. We have to also see in the future, how are we going to rebuild? How are we going to give back the people's lives that were taken away from them? And I think that's all I have for now.
Mark, you're muted.
Rose, again, thank you again. We're not giving up, and please share as you can, but Pharrell is going to share a little bit of his work as well. I know your voice is so important, so please stay with us and continue to contribute as you can. Pharrell, please talk to us a little bit about what your work is doing, please, because you've been working with this for a while as well, and you're a voice of reason, and please bring it on.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I didn't expect to speak at all, but thank
Okay,
you, Mark.
you're a
This
good
is
man. So
okay. This is
bring
Farrell Brody, I think, but I know many of the folks who are on tonight. Anyway, I'm a member, a Jewish member of Jewish Voice for Peace. What I was thinking about, while Rose was speaking and Shayna added a lot, was, as an American, often I think I and many other Americans look back at our history and rue what all that happened to the Native American Indians and what was done to them in that genocide. And what I'm thinking about then is that the history of what has happened since the early 20th century in Palestine is that of settler colonialism. That's what our country had, and that's what Palestine has had. And settler colonialism is a vicious and hateful policy. It always, everywhere it exists, whether it was in the United States or whether it was in Canada or Australia or New Zealand or any of the European countries who went and tried to colonize and did in Africa. It was hateful, it was vicious, it was murderous, and so on. So, really, what's going on in Palestine, as horrible as it is really no surprise because settler colonialism, which always places one group of people above another group and really is a racist policy because of that. That's what has gone on in Palestine since way back in the middle, certainly in the middle of the 20th century. We have to keep in mind then that what we are fighting is settler colonialism, and it's a terrible, terrible enemy to fight, but that's our responsibility. Anyway, thank you, Mark, for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you, Pharrell.
If I could add anything to that, I completely agree. And I think that enough time has passed in the world for us to realize that it's time for us to change. It's time for us to not let history continue repeating itself. It's time for us to stand on the right side of history and stand on the side of humanity as opposed to standing on the side of money and stand on the side of people living a normal life where they don't have to worry about jumping over a wall to go to school, where they don't have to worry about when the next time they're going to eat is, or if on their way to go get water for their sick mother or their sick sister, they get blown to pieces by an airstrike. This is something that we have to stop because if we were alive during slavery, we would not have let that happen. If we were alive at any other points, we would not have let that happen. We have the power now to stop it, and we need to move as a world to stop it.
Yeah, Rose, I hope we would not have been sitting in slavery time and all the other abominable time of history, that we would be that voice that was in resistance. And I hope
but at
we're
the same time,
standing in resistance now. I do hope that.
at the same time, our just like I'm sure people ask their grandparents what they did during that time. Our kids and our grandkids are going to ask us what we did. Did we stand by and we watch a genocide happen and we let it happen because it wasn't affecting us right now where we are currently? Or did we say, no, enough is enough? We can't keep letting history repeat itself.
Amen. 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 Um, I want to bring us a little bit because we're in Martin Luther King weekend, and Troy Anthony Harris wants to talk a little bit about the historical contributions that Martin Luther King, the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Presented to the world. I don't know, Troy, are you ready to speak a little bit about that, or you want a little bit later?
No, I am ready to go. I thought I was going to be coming up with the announcement of all the MLK events.
Oh, please go do your thing.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm trying to get my
We hear you, so you just keep on going. We may not see you, but we hear you. Oh, he went out on us. Okay. Um, but he'll be back. He wants to give us some update on what's going on locally here as well. Rose, thank you again. Shayna, do you have a more insight on what your work is? Connie?
Yeah. uh, It looks like Troy's ready.
Oh, Troy, you ready? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Troy.
Okay, this is an impromptu thing because when I saw that the salon was tonight and knew that it was MLK weekend, I reached out to Suzanne because I thought it would really be potent to share with you a recitation of a piece that I did back in response to the George Floyd tragedy. I self-produced a my interpretation of Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, with in partnership and collaboration with the Abbey Theatre of Dublin. Surprisingly, I had thought I wanted to, of course, be a part of that response, but because I was working at a hospital, I didn't want to jeopardize any of the children with COVID or any of that. So I really thought doing this one-man piece would really be powerful. I am sharing this with you for a couple of reasons. Well, of course, obviously because it's MLK Day. Also because the finished video piece is available for your use, whether it be Martin Luther King Day, whether it be Black History Month. And also, just to give you a new sense, I'm sure most of the people in this meeting have read this famous piece. But it really makes a difference when you hear the words. And I got that impression from the different audiences that I have presented it to. They said, Troy, you brought his writing to life. And it was like seeing Martin Luther King think. I edited my version. My version online is 26 minutes, and I didn't actually get to time this, but I'm going to present a
You don't have
snippet.
26 minutes. You don't have 26 minutes, but
Oh, okay. All right. It's not that long. I edited it down a little bit, and I just wanted to give you all some pertinent points of the piece. My biggest lesson from this experience was that this letter was written 50 years ago, and the issues that Martin Luther King spoke about or wrote about are still very present today. So, without any further preface, this is my presentation of Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. Oh, sorry. I just spilled my drink. Okay, sorry. Dateline, April 16th, 1963. My dear fellow clergymen, while confined here in the Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement calling my present activities unwise and untimely. Seldom do I pause to answer criticism of my work and ideas. But since I feel that you are men of genuine goodwill and that your criticisms are sincerely set forth, I want to try to answer your statement in what I hope will be patient and reasonable terms. I think I should indicate why I am here in Birmingham, since you have been influenced by the view which argues against outsiders coming in. I have the honor of serving as president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization operating in every southern state with headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. We have some 85 affiliated organizations across the South, and one of them is the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. Frequently, we share staff, educational, and financial resources with our affiliates. Several months ago, the affiliate here in Birmingham asked us to be on call to engage in a nonviolent direct action program if such were deemed necessary. we readily consented. But more basically, I am in Birmingham because injustice is here. Just as the prophets of the 8th century BC left their villages and carried their "Thus saith the Lord" far beyond the boundaries of their hometowns, and just as the Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the far corners of the Greco-Roman world, so am I compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the Macedonian call for aid. Moreover, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one indirectly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds. In any nonviolent campaign, there are 4 basic steps: collection of the facts to determine whether injustices exist, negotiation, self-purification, and direct action. We have gone through all of these steps in Birmingham. Birmingham is probably the most thoroughly segregated city in the United States. Its ugly record of brutality is widely known. Negroes have experienced grossly unjust treatment in the courts. There have been more unsolved bombings of Negro homes and churches in Birmingham than in any other city of the nation. These are the hard, brutal facts of the case. On the basis of these conditions, Negro leaders sought to negotiate with the city fathers, but the latter consistently refused to engage in good faith negotiation. You may well ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path? You are quite right in calling for negotiation. Indeed, this is the very purpose of direct action. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and foster attention that a community which has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. It seeks so to dramatize the issue that it can no longer be ignored. My citing the creation of tension as part of the work of the nonviolent resistor may sound rather shocking, but I must confess that I am not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly opposed violent tension, but there is a type of constructive nonviolent tension which is necessary for growth. I therefore concur with you in your call for negotiation. Too long has our beloved Southland been bogged down in a tragic effort to live in monologue rather than dialogue. We have waited more than 340 years for our constitutional and God-given rights. The nations of Asia and Africa are moving with jet-like speed toward gaining political independence. But we still creep at horse and buggy pace toward gaining a cup of coffee at a lunch counter. Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation to say, wait. But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your brothers and sisters, at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and even kill your Black brothers and sisters, when you see the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the public amusement park that has just been advertised on television and see tears welling up in her eyes when she is told that Funktown is closed to colored children, and see ominous clouds of inferiority beginning to form in her little mental sky, and see her beginning to distort her personality by developing an unconscious bitterness toward white people. When you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son who is asking, "Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean?" When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you. When you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading colored and white. When your first name becomes nigger, your middle name becomes boy, however old you are, and your last name becomes John, and your wife and mother are never given the respected title Mrs. When you are harried by day and haunted by night by the fact that you are a Negro living constantly at tiptoe stance, never quite knowing what to expect next, and are plagued with inner fears and outer resentments. When you are forever fighting a degenerating sense of nobodiness, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. I hope, sirs, you can understand our legitimate and unavoidable impatience. You express a great deal of anxiety over our willingness to break laws. This is certainly a legitimate concern. Since we so diligently urge people to obey the Supreme Court's decision of 1954 outlawing segregation in the public schools, at first glance it may seem rather paradoxical for us consciously to break laws. One may well ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? Well, the answer lies in the fact that there are two types of laws: just and unjust. I would be the first to advocate obeying just laws. One has not only a legal, but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all. I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been greatly disappointed with the white moderates. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes He can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. I had hoped that the white moderate would understand that law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and that when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. I had hoped that the white moderate would understand that the present tension in the South is a necessary phase of the transition from an obnoxious negative peace in which the Negro passively accepted his unjust plight to a substantive and positive peace in which all men will respect the dignity and worth of human personality. Actually, we who engage in nonviolent direct action are not the creators of tension. We merely bring to the surface the hidden tension that is already alive. We bring it out in the open where it can be seen and dealt with. Like a boil that can never be cured so long as it is covered up, but must be opened with all its ugliness to the natural medicines of air and light. Injustice must be exposed with all the tension its exposure creates to the light of human conscience and the air of national opinion before it can be cured. Never before have I written so long a letter. I'm afraid it is much too long to take your precious time. I can assure you that it would have been much shorter if I had been writing from a comfortable desk. But what else can one do when he is alone in a narrow jail cell, other than write long letters, think long thoughts, and pray long prayers? I hope this letter finds you strong in the faith. I also hope that the circumstances will soon make it possible for me to meet each of you, not as an integrationist or a civil rights leader, but as a fellow clergyman and a Christian brother. Let us all hope that the dark clouds of racial prejudice will soon pass away, and the deep fog of misunderstanding will be lifted from our fear-drenched communities, and in some not too distant future, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine over our great nation with all their scintillating beauty. Yours for the cause of peace and brotherhood, Martin Luther King, Jr.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. That was beautiful, 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 beautiful. You gave breadth and presence to that letter. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. We'll see you at the King Center on Monday for the open house.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. Do you want to tell folks more details about the open house? The open house is like all day, isn't it?
It is, and it literally does go on all day. There's all kinds of exhibits and performances, and I think every Black person in Columbus is there. I really want to encourage our allies of all races to come join us and celebrate. There's a lot of learning, and it's rare that the King Center is really opened up completely like this, which is a shame in itself. If you would like to get more information about this letter from a Birmingham jail piece for your own use, you're welcome to email me. My email I will put in chat, but it is CMH as in Columbus, CMH Blackspace, BLACKSPACE @gmail.com.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
You're welcome.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Whew. Yeah, that letter, I encourage everyone. I grew up That was one of the first things I read when I was like 10, 12 years old. My dad made me read that thing. Uh, it was not just written for, it was written for the white clergy that were standing off from the action that was happening and what brought Martin Luther King to Birmingham and why he was arrested and why they were not supporting him. And it wasn't calling them out, it was calling to their spirit, their theology, their experience, their love. And we're in that same situation. Did you hear that letter? Just listen to that letter. And we are in that situation still. Remember what we started with. We're the triplets of oppression, militarism. Listen to that, militarism, poverty, and racism. We're still in that mix. So Shayna was willing to offer a few more things, but I don't know if Rose, you're ready to jump on yet or not.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. I am more of an activist in the morning. I just had a very long day, so I'm gonna hop off here, but I wanted to make a quick exit. I wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to my family's story. And I hope that you guys continue to talk about Palestine and the genocide and continue showing up. And please, please continue calling your state representatives and trying to get involved as much as possible. I included in the chat the GoFundMe, which we would appreciate, my family and I, any donations, or even if you could share the link with anyone that you know that could help out, that would be great. I also shared my Instagram if you guys want to keep up with that. I do post on the daily and I post live updates about what's going on in the ground in Gaza. So again, I would really, really like to say thank you for allowing me to speak and how grateful I am that everyone
Rose,
listened.
thank you for coming on and agreed. We need to stay in contact, community. If you could please, we are a media, and Columbus Free Press is a media. We need writers. So if you would not please, would you please consider writing down and putting to us that possibility of your experience and ongoing experience. I know you have that in your own format, but send that to Suzanne and us, and we will.
Of course, I actually have a press video of me sharing the entire speech, and I have it written down as well, so I can share that as well too.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I know you may need to go but thank you again for sharing. And it looks like Mr. Harris has a little bit of hand up there.
Thank you guys. And if anyone wants to reach out, just everyone has my number, or please ask Connie for it directly. I don't mind. Okay. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
And buy a
Free
house from her.
Palestine.
And buy a house from her.
Thank you.
And buy a house from me.
Good night. All right, Mr. Harris.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Suzanne shared a link to the MLK video, and it's my fault for not telling her, but that is not supposed to be public. I will put a link in the chat of a preview, which is allowed to be shared with others, but that link is not supposed to be used for the public.
Oh, we're not public. We are your family.
I know that. I just didn't want people to go spreading it around.
Yeah, don't spread that out, please. Don't spread it out. Please don't spread that out. Again, thank you again for your presentation. That oh my God, that was so riveting and important for this weekend. And
I will tell you, I will tell you that this can be recreated live, and I had done a live performance of it at Life Care Alliance for their senior group, and the first few tables right directly in front of me were all older Black women. And the experience of seeing them hear his words again was so powerful. I have never in my 40 years of acting life had that kind of feeling or gotten that kind of energy from an audience.
I've read the letter before, but I've never seen it presented like that. So it was damn good. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take off because we have other events, but I will see you all soon.
Love, happiness. Connie, please.
Mark,
Yeah, Connie.
I just wanted to say that reading was very meaningful with what's going on in Palestine today. And
Yes.
Sheena may want to make a few final remarks. I'm not sure if she does or not.
She does. She already said she will.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So if you're ready, Shayna, please.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely really appreciated that, Troy, before you go. And unfortunately missed Rose already to say that to also just really appreciate all that she shared. But I think that both of them together were two really important reminders about not being the white moderate, not sitting on the sidelines in the face of really brutal injustice. And something that has really and when Rose was also saying earlier just that this is not something that continue. We can't, the goal of the ceasefire can't be to go back to what the situation had been before. Israeli officials have been really violently clear about what they want and intend. There had before this genocide, there had been this horribly dehumanizing rhetoric that I'm not sure if people are familiar with, where they talk about mowing the lawn. Are people familiar with that idea?
Yes.
Just this horrific idea that you could cut down people really in Gaza and then let that violence continue in order to stop people from living their lives and that would somehow create security, which obviously it doesn't. We can't go back to the Israeli government shooting young boys in Gaza in the West Bank all the time. It can't go back to the constant reality of indefinite detention. We need to really fight right now because there's big changes right now. And we need to fight for a ceasefire, and we need to fight for a lot more than a ceasefire as well for Palestinians. And so I wanted to kind of close us out thinking about where are you doing that personally? I mean, I know there's some people in this room who have done a lot of that fighting personally. People like Pharrell and Connie, I know personally. I'm sure there are other people in this room who've done a lot personally as well. But it's one thing to be in these rooms where there's some agreement and some understanding that this is all really important. And another thing to have difficult conversations, maybe it's giving to Rose's fundraiser. And I've seen fundraisers like Rose's across the internet to try and get people and families out and just to be able to save the whole families from this horrific genocide. So if you want to go find that link just a little bit up in the chat right now and open it up and support Rose, who so generously shared her story with us. But also, what are you doing personally to fundamentally change the situation? Where are you involved? Where are you plugged into the fight? And if you're not sure where you can be plugged into the fight, maybe it's through joining JVP Central Ohio and joining a committee and planning an event or planning an action, writing an op-ed on the narrative team. There are so many different things that are needed right now because it's a really big moment and we all need to be in this fight to fight the genocide and really change the direction that things are going, both in the US's response to militarization and the impacts of what that's looking like in Palestine.
Thank you, Shayna. Michael happens to be on today. I don't know if Stephen, if we can get Michael for sure to at some point to talk about the 9:30 action that he wants to get going at the convention. I think that'll be a very dynamite. I've done it before with Ruben Herrera, one of our close friends who's passed. He did some great actions in front of that that breakfast in the past. I think an action would be fantastic if we can support that largely. Get 50, 60 people out there, or even 10 people. Go ahead, Michael.
Hello.
Yes.
Pardon me. Essentially, we want something very somber and reflective of where we are. And that'll be through some simple messaging, ceasefire, and the number of people killed as of Friday, as well as a call to Representative Beatty to to join in the call for a ceasefire. And it's all the signage and graphics we've invested in over time, and now this is just something easy that we thought the last minute have a presence there, just a solemn press. So it'll be an hour. You're asked to dress in black. It's from 9:30 in the morning until 10:30, a straight hour, and then it'll be silent.
Dress
Sorry,
warmly.
worked all day. I'm trying to think.
Dress warmly.
Oh, and I'm there's some people in who will join us. I'm sorry, the signage from this event will go to the march afterwards. There's like, anyway, that's good. Anything else?
Oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you. Yeah, but just my personal advice, dress warmly, because it will be 1 degree out there. So if you can get into the convention center, get in there and try to do that as well there. So, but yeah, it's supposed to be a solemn, silent action. But thanks, Michael, for joining tonight. Shayna, again,
thank you.
Your work will be even growing as you get to know Columbus. I know it. And Connie, you're the queen of everything. You keep us communicating with each other and doing their thing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Anybody? Yeah. Yo, well, who's talking? I heard something.
Oh,
Okay.
I just said thank you.
Oh, hey. I think we're coming to a close, but this is not a close. This is an opening, actually. We're not trying to close down. We're wanting to enlarge in our community to understand what Dr. King was trying to tell us way back. And many advocates and many leaders that have been shot down. They've been shot down, literally shot down. That we need to stand against militarism. We need to stand against poverty. And we need to stand against racism. And how does our community, I was told it's supposed to speak at the camera, but how does our community represent in those historical and actual fights, those struggles? I really encourage people that have the spirit and the ability to write and share with us as our community. We are a publication. We are a public media. We are a radical media. We are a public, live, at the front lines of so many struggles. But we do need people to document their presence, being at wherever you're at, and share and get it to Suzanne, which is raising her hand. Go ahead, Suzanne. I know you just, I'm sorry, you just say.
I think Ferbs has a question. I saw it in the chat.
Who does? I didn't see. Who does?
It's let's see. Trying to scroll up.
JJ.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Or maybe it isn't
JJ?
Rose. Somebody named JJ. Maybe I thought it was somebody else, but
JJ, I
Yes,
don't
my,
know who
my
that
name
is.
is Janae, and I do have,
Where you at, Janae?
I am
Hi.
here, thank you.
Hi, JJ.
My question was, considering the divisive nature of discourse globally, what is the common ground? How do you fight without picking and adhering to a side? And how do you see the duality of truths in the narrative amidst the bias, the propaganda, and the variations of experiences that people have lived? I listened to Rose and heard the story of her family. We're all inundated with media from all angles. So how can it be established that there is more than one truth and people on all sides have lived experiences and grievances? And how do we go about? I mean, there's no real way to escape the nature of our virtual realities, and that all things pretty much exist in the virtual realm anymore. And it can seem like an insurmountable mountain to climb when we're to, go out and fight. What is it? Where's the common ground? Where can we as common people make the most impact? I was seated on an aisle seat on an airplane about 5 days ago. And I'll tell you first that I'm here tonight because I was thinking of a friend who was a member of the Jewish community. And I was just thinking of how people in their individual lives every day are coping with the trauma of this all, and how we all kind of go about life, trying to cope with and keep going and make impactful change, particularly community advocates, which I recognize a lot of people here to be. And how are we in our everyday lives sustaining our own balance and trying to give and help move along societal progress and unity and civility in the world? But I'm sitting on that plane about 5 days ago, and I noticed the gentleman next to me reading the book. And I'm always surprised to see people reading a hard copy of anything because, people either don't read or they read things online or whatever. So I looked over, and I'm sorry, I managed to sneak a secret photo of what he was reading. And it was a bit disturbing to me, so I do want to apologize in advance. But it said, Jews are the problem. Modus operandi of the Jew. They war by proxy. And I'm sitting next to this person. I can feel their body heat radiating against mine. I'm in flight next to this person reading this book for the next couple of hours. And it was the first time I was so directly confronted in such proximity with what I recognize to be, in some fashion, an organized movement to disseminate a certain message about a group of people. And coming from a minority group myself, the Black American community, I found myself thinking of, the struggle of my African ancestry and Black American ancestry, the struggle of my Native American indigenous ancestry. And I imagined that instead of, the Jews are the problem, that book was titled, How to Hang an N-Word, or Die Whitey Die, or, interject any other, group of people. And I was just literally in shock. And the part of me that is objective and diplomatic, there were a million things running through my mind, one of which was, where does this idea come from, and why do people cling to these ideologies and perpetuate them and disseminate them in mass. And I also recognize that this is rhetoric that is being propagated in little connected cells of people like all over the world, and they end up in a plane seat next to you. And I felt very, very compelled to engage this person and try to appreciate where they were coming from. And then I thought, well, I kind of don't want to end up on a plane fight. And the person next to him is reading something that seems to be along a similar thread. And so I just left it be. But instead of using that airplane time to work on, coursework or an assignment or watch a movie, I looked up this book and found a YouTube video and spent 55 minutes and some odd seconds trying to understand, like, what's the motivation behind this? Where does the disconnect fall? A lot of, my dear friends are pro-Palestinian advocates. I personally have beautiful friendships with people of all walks of life. And so I'm just like, where is the commonality? Where is the common ground? How can I have a conversation with a person on a plane who I don't know from Adam and will likely never see again about why do you feel compelled to embrace a book of this topic, and so hardly convicted on some of the rhetoric that is perpetuated in this text?
JJ, that is the $64,000 question, but thank you so much for asking that. Shayna and Connie want to spit, and then I think Joe Friendly, Joe Friendly, will say something as well. But let's go with Connie and then Shayna, and then we'll get with Joe. Joe looks like someone I know.
JJ, I think your concerns are very well founded. It sounds to me like that book is very anti-Semitic. However, being pro-Palestinian human rights is not being against Jews. Our problem is with the government of Israel and their policies, and the government of the United States and its policies. And there's a big difference there. So I guess what I would say is if you wanted to answer to someone who was reading something like that, I would say the best thing to do would be to ask them, like you said, you even suggested, ask them, why would you be reading something like that? And then careful listening to them, and then, perhaps stating your opinion. But, if 30,000 Jews were being killed right now, I would be on the opposite side of this. What is going on right now is not good for Israel. It's not good for the United States, and it's definitely not good for Palestine. And if this war or the conflict, or whatever you want to call it, escalates, it is going to be very hard on the nation of Israel. So we're not, JVP works to promote the human rights, dignity, and security of all people in the region, in Israel and Palestine. So, just wanted to clear that up. But I think your remarks were very sensitive, and I thank you. It's a problem that we all face.
Very important question. Shayna, please.
Yeah, I also appreciate the thought as well of seeing a form of racism and responding to it. For anti-Semitism is another form of racism, and I think you were really clear about that, and recognizing, okay, I'm also from a group that experiences discrimination, and this is just another form, and that's true. And anti-Semitism is part of the broader system of white supremacy. So I'm also speaking as a Jewish American, and we actually can't have a fight against anti-Semitism that's not also recognizing the humanity of Palestinians. And it's been a real shame to see organizations like the Anti-Defamation League make a total conflation between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, because actually that's actually directly harmful to anti-Semitism. We know that there has been a really big increase in anti-Semitism since October 7th. And that's it, you know, it's because there's just more attention to what's happening right now. And the ADL made a claim that was absolutely unfounded because they counted 40% of their anti-Semitic incidences as basically anti-Zionist protests. And it's just, those are, I appreciate you, Janae, saying like, oh, okay, like look at these two sides. And I think it's actually not two sides. Like as a Jewish person who's absolutely, you know, pro-Palestinian, I am not in any way on the side of the anti-Semites. It's actually very, you know, it's a very different two sides than that. That there is actually a little bit, there's some amount of dialogue and some amount of having difficult conversations with people, even people who hold abhorrent and racist views. And we don't, and they can be wrong, and it's, you know, like there are some views that are just wrong, and I think anti-Semitism is always wrong, and it isn't anti-Semitism isn't anti-Zionism. Racism is always wrong, and supporting the genocide is wrong, and it's not anti-Semitic. That's my view as it.
Thank you, Shana. Do we have Joe Friendly, please? I know Joe Friendly. Go ahead, Joe Friendly.
I wanted to offer an author, Chaim, Hyam Maccabee, Maccoby, who offers in a couple of books, but the main one, Revolution in Judea, and another book called The Mythmaker, Paul and the Invention of Christianity. He explains the tension between Christianity and Judaism in a profound way that is needed. And the important point he makes is that the creation of Christianity occurred at a historical moment when Rome made it a capital offense for anyone within the Roman Empire to advocate anything positive of Judaism. And therefore, Christianity is actually a systematic defilement of Jewish principles. And that is a little hard to take, but if you read the book, he spells it out carefully. I do share the views of disappointment with Israel, to put it mildly. It's horrible what they're doing, and it is disgraceful, really, to Jews. But I did want to offer just that idea that there is some reason why people of the Christian faith are uncomfortable with Judaism. There is profound contradictions between those religions, and it isn't really faced, but Chaim Maccabee does spell it out pretty carefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the Abrahamic reality for those that are not of that issue or of that a walk of life, you may not understand, but Islam, Jewish, and Christian all are part of that book, and we're trying to figure that out. That's the biggest issue. And how do we figure out Hagar? How do we figure out, you know, the whole deal, you know, the prostitution, you know, the whole deal, you know, if you get deep into it, you can go that direction. But politically, we're not about that. We're talking about what does it mean to be about creating safe space for families to live in this world as we are now. It doesn't matter who you are. How do you create safe space in wherever we are and to advance, not to just sit in abject poverty forever, not to stay in a prison forever, that we need to move forward as a human species. And that's the challenge. And so we can get tied up into historical confusions if we say confusion or whatever, different interpretations of where we're at. I just, for me, I'm more political than I am faith. I am faith. I believe in faith. I have so many friends and other folks that are faith, and we try to struggle from that, but it's more political. We need to understand when you got people dropping bombs on children and obliterating them, what it doesn't matter in Sudan, Cameroon. Let's run through the 40 nations that are actually active in explosions. We got Yemen getting blown up right now because they're actually in resistance to the war that's going on. And why are they being attacked? So let's slow down a little bit and understand this discussion. We're about trying to figure it out. We are we are Contemporary Institute for we are Columbus Institute for Contemporary Journalism. That's what we are. That's what our community is. That's what Free Press is. We are trying to express the voice of speaking truth to power. And that's what our salons have been. And Suzanne, we got April coming up where we have Tom Nielsen, who's going to come and give us some great joy and some music and express what it means to be in struggle. We've been since 1970 trying to figure out how to express ourselves to the people that are in power. One day we may be in power, maybe, I don't know. If we were, we'd be a lot better world, huh? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe we'd mess up as well. But the ones in power right now are messing up. Seriously, they're messing up. Again, going back to Martin Luther King, the triplets of oppression, we have to constantly go back to what he's tried to tell us before he was assassinated. Just like Jesus, just like anybody else that speaks truth to power. Militarism, poverty, and racism have to be about our central structure. Pharrell, you have your hand up, please. Go ahead. Unmute if you can. Yeah. Stephen, do you have Pharrell unmuted yet? I think he's a host. So, but yeah, the Houthis. Yeah, Charles says the Houthis are firing on ships. Well, you know, the ships are promoting war.
Okay.
So it's a challenge. It's a challenge to say who's right, who's wrong. But the Houthis have been in a battle against the KSA for how many years? It's almost as what 2016, I think, 2017, somewhere around there.
I would,
fighting.
Mark.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm ready to say one thing.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Actually, this is JJ still there?
I hope so. Yes, she is.
Well, to JJ, I think you had a lot of questions, and I don't know if they can be answered tonight, but I would suggest that you get active in some way to express what your feelings are. Now, I would suggest if you're interested in what's going on in Palestine, you would join Jewish Voice for Peace. You do not have to be Jewish in Jewish Voice for Peace. It's open to everyone who wants to do something about that situation. So please, if you're at all interested, I think that doing action will help you to get some of the answers that you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Pharrell. Yeah, the main thing is get involved with some kind of resistance to militarism, poverty, and racism. all three need to be part of the agenda that you work on. It could be prison ministry or prison activism. It could be wherever we go, but do not, and again, militarism is constantly dropped when you start talking about the Bernie Sanders agenda or any of those folks that say they're progressive. And yes, we have to talk seriously to our Jewish friends because they get concerned when we start getting too close to Middle East. But they'll be down with us when they're talking about racism. They'll be down with us when we're talking about poverty. But then when we get into militarism and Israeli military, it gets difficult. The discussion is very difficult, very difficult. We lose friends on that discussion. I don't know. I don't know where we're going, JJ. Your question is I would say $128,000 question, not just the $64,000 question. How do you engage in conversation without alienating friendship? But sometimes we need to challenge each other more than we want to. And maybe that friendship will grow. Sometimes when we get in argument, I've seen it. When we get in an argument, I've seen these little kids. I was talking to this 9-year-old kid. He was like, I'm not going to go to school on Tuesday. I said, why? He said, because we got Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. And I said, no, he's Monday. He said, no, we take off 2 days. I said, oh. I said, well, and then he said, maybe we should have a week-long vacation for Dr. Martin Luther King. I was like, 9-year-old, go, buddy, go. I was like, good job, man. So maybe we need to redesign what our holiday systems are. Maybe we need to think, maybe Cesar Chavez deserves a day in March 31st. That's his birthday. Maybe we need to think about, I'm just throwing things out, but let's join each other in resistance to these three triplets of oppression. Because no matter how you define oppression, we are living it. We are in it. We are that which is a challenge to sustainable living. Now, however you want to define that, we cannot sustain ourselves the way we're doing it right now. As we've seen, 90,000 people have been injured or killed since October 7th in Gaza. 90,000. Can you imagine that? That just blows my mind. It really does. So I'm just reading something. Somebody is Jewish nationalists. I agree. It is. It's hard. So Connie, Shayna, Pete, thank you for joining us. Our president, does our president have anything to say? The president, he comes from us. Are you still in Thailand today? He's in Thailand. Yeah, I saw him shooting pool the other day. So he's in Thailand. Our president, Janice, she spent time in El Salvador. She went down when the war was going on and then spent more time down there to sort of express concern and solidarity with folks in that area. So our history is long. We have had a long history of how the community or Columbus Free Press, the Columbus Institute for Contemporary Journalism, has been articulating and using those mechanisms that we've created. We've created 2 radio stations. We have ongoing website presence. We used to have a paper. If anybody's a billionaire, I know it's a billionaire to raise up for a newspaper nowadays. So if you're a billionaire, we'd love you to join in and help us out. Anyone on the, no, I'm kidding, but but it takes a lot to create paper, but we are doing it. We're doing it. We're continually to be part of it. Facebook and all those other social medias that are out there, we're trying to create a place, a safe place for people to articulate challenges to what's going on. And again, thank you again for showing up today. We're Mary Jane, I do want you to speak a little bit, update us a little bit of what's that falterall that's going on down at the Ohio General Assembly on we vote for things and then they say, maybe not. Elections, maybe not. Maybe democracies, maybe not. If you don't mind, please. Can you Stephen, do you have Mary Jane able to undo things, so please? We're sort of shifting off from just Middle East at this point, but again, don't ever forget that free press is on the side of resistance to
There we go.
unjust realities.
There we
Thank you.
go. I was not allowed to unmute myself.
Now you are.
So now you unmuted me and you've got my voice. Well, real quickly, because there's really not much report since the end of the last year. As we will know, issue 2 passed by, I think, about 56% majority of Ohio voters on November 7th, and then actually 30 days later, it went into force because between then the time that it was passed, the time that it was due to be going to force, they couldn't pass any modifications to it at the Ohio General Assembly. Doesn't mean they didn't try, but what's interesting about it was they're kind of going in a clandestine sort of way. The Republicans took it was the HB 86, which had something to do with unrelated to marijuana. I think it was something to do with liquor control, and they added a bunch of stuff to it, addendums to it to change, to modify issue 2. See, issue 2, because it has, after it was passed, it was automatically placed into the Ohio Revised Code. Now, when it's the Ohio Revised Code, that means it has the force of law, but it means that it also has to have regulations to go with it, which is the function of the Ohio Administrative Code. So the issue 2 is a force of law right now, but it doesn't really have anything to go with it, like official cultivation facilities or official dispensaries, things like that. That has to come after the administrative laws are approved by, and that's where the General Assembly should come in. But instead, they decided they wanted to kind of circumvent that with this kind of interesting addition to an unrelated bill. Well, they put a bunch of stuff in that bill that had to do making new laws. They tried to tank hemp, et cetera, et cetera. So when it got to the House said no. And what's interesting about the House, and I did a big analysis on October last year, the whole breakdown of the General Assembly about who supported marijuana and who didn't, and how to do that upon party lines. And we all would know all too well as well that Ohio has a tremendously gerrymandered legislature, and it's what's called trifecta, meaning it's our government is controlled by Republicans in the executive branch, and then all Republicans really can control in both houses of the legislature, so they can kind of do what they want. And so when a bill got to the House, what happens is we have some libertarians there. And remember the old Libertarian Party? I mean, it's like in this day and age, I thought, geez, they just don't barely exist anymore. But they do in spirit. And so a couple of libertarians there in the General Assembly of the House blocked it. They said, no, we're going to go with what the voters said. We're not going to add these provisions that are wildly unrelated to issue 2. And so that's what allowed the issue 2 to basically go in the revised code and sit there unmodified since it was passed in November. That's just a good thing. It's a good thing. That's kind of what we want. Now, the house, I think you saw DeWine come out and say, well, we've got, we could talk about the trans bill if you want, but that's really unrelated to what I do. But in the process of, vetoing that bill for the trans, he was saying to the House and the Senate, come on, get these provisions passed so that we can implement the marijuana bill. And they didn't even go along with the government at that point. And so, as I say, right now we're in the stasis so that I think the General Assembly doesn't go into session again, or at least the House side of it, until probably the very end of January or the beginning of February. And that's going to be kind of when the action happens. But it's interesting that we're so far away from now, really, the election. And we kind of get a really contentious General Assembly. I wonder how much of those provisions will actually be changed. So I guess we'll have to stay tuned to find that out. But it's looking much better now than it did, kind of the day after it passed or something like that, when the Republicans really wanted to hack at it. All right, so I guess that's my quick summary. Any questions? Any questions?
Thank you. Yeah. And again, we don't know where it's going to end up at this point. It is legal to
I think we
own.
know where it's going to end up because I don't think it's going to be repealed.
No.
Right? I'd be a real surprised if they repealed it.
What I'm saying
so right now, what was passed by the voters is what is law right now.
Right. And what I'm saying is right now, what they've sort of put in place in their thinking is that you're allowed to have it, but you can't buy it. So guess what? That increases the black market in a lot of ways.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
There's a caveat
That's
there.
the way I heard
because the medical program continues unabated. So if you're part of the medical program, you can buy as much as you were allowed to buy before issue 2. I personally am a registered patient, and I haven't skipped a beat in my acquisition of cannabis, that I use for my conditions. So there's no problem there.
Yeah, I hear that.
I guess
Medical's fine.
Medical's fine. Is that for recreational cannabis is unpurchasable, but to say that it can't be purchased at all would be incorrect.
Correct. I agree with that. Thank you for the correction. But if you don't have a little card, you're not have the right to buy, but you can possess. And so does that put us into a situation that the black market is really, or the green market, I'd rather call it, the green market is actually still in place, and it's really going to be enhanced because I can hold on to as much as they say I can hold on to, and no one can stop me. Not me, but I'm just saying anybody. But you can't, and then Charles was asking, with this current situation, how many plants can he grow?
It's what is in issue 2. Okay, you can grow 6 plants. Anybody can grow 6 plants. Now, if you have a household of more than I think 2 people, it's 2 people, maybe. You could go 12 plants.
Right at this point, but they're trying to negotiate all that too. I'm just saying, for me, all this back and forth that's going on down at General Assembly, which again, the General Assembly is very toxic, and it really makes no sense. A lot of what they're doing, they attack transgender people, and they don't even want to talk about other things that are pertinent to reality. Thank you for your update. And yeah, we're still in the flux of what issue 2 is going to actually play out, but it is legal. It is in the Constitution. And
no. This was not constitutional.
Not Constitution. It's statutory. My bad. Statutory. My bad. Yeah, it's getting late. I'm starting to fade out. I'm about ready to go do my other thing right now. So, yeah. But thank you, Mary Jane.
You're more than welcome.
Mary Jane. Do my cats count? Oh, and Charles asks, do my cats count?
Unfortunately, no. Cats, unless they're citizens of Ohio, no.
Unless they have a medical card. Ooh.
But they have a medical. Your cats have a medical card. Yeah, they can buy it.
That'd be an interesting. I have all
I'm here with my cat. I I don't think they get very far.
I don't think so. But Connie, again, thank you for inviting Rose and Shayna. And Shayna, I don't know if you want to do any closing remarks on what's going on. I know we sort of diverted a little bit, but Connie, again, please give us a shout out, and then we probably should shut down. We've already been 2 hours, and I appreciate everybody's perspectives on everything. This is a challenging situation, challenging time that we're living in. I don't know where it's going to end up. I don't know how we can bring this new situation, because it's not the situation has been going on for 75 years, if we're speaking about Israel and Palestine.
And Mark, I think that's a good place to close, but we need to be in this for the long haul
Yes,
because
ma'am.
it's going to go on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for addressing this issue.
Of course. That's what Free Press does. We're about the pressing issues of the world. And please
Absolutely.
start writing and give it to Suzanne and Bob, and Bob is a great editor. He's going to cut you down like crazy. If you say he's going to cut it out. It's going to be whatever else. He's very good. Suzanne's very good, and please keep writing. And you got a long ways to catch up with Mary Jane on her articles, because she is the prince and a princess of all article writing for Columbus Free Press. So if you cannot write a lot, don't worry about it, because you're never going to catch up with her.
And thank you, Shayna, for being on the call.
Yes.
She might have a closing remark.
Yeah, she was about to, but then I don't know, she must have jumped off. I know. But yeah, Shayna is great. Thank you. It was great meeting her. And it was a great time to talk with her at that bicentennial protest and get to know her. So thank you for inviting her, Connie, and